Oh, really?
So is that who you call when it's off kilter?
Yep. That's exactly it.
You don't have to, there'll be a dozen others that call.
But that's not even owned by, it's that nonprofit put it up, I thought.
But Robbie's got the key.
Oh, okay.
We got regulars today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some slides for Bobby. Okay. I'll check with him and see. He's here, he's coming to me, so, yeah.
File transfer sharing thing,
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
Hey man, how you doing?
On my desktop.
Okay. He's here, so I'll go check with him. Yeah.
It's going.
Thank you, sir.
Is it going for you?
Actually have a hard copy if you want.
Sent you some. The amount of super- Sent it square to you guys.
Infringe on your space.
No, you're fine.
Can't use it as
See, this is for the, these are for the,
Okay. Is that almost like duplex kind of, I mean, for better,
but the definition of different multi-phase.
okay,
So we're gonna make sure.
gotcha.
Somebody told me that. I didn't realize.
What's up, Billy Bob? How you doing? We got a date coming up this week.
Yeah, that's right, come on.
Even though they're not in the tournament no more. Oh, really?
See the developer.
That was supposed to be nice one, but to be that one first.
There you go. Get right. You know what the dust
You never
devil is,
replied to
Kevin?
my picture.
Guess we still need Chuck again. Well, we ain't gotta have Robbie, but we need. He's always at the last second.
He's got it down to a art. Exactly.
Do mine, I'm gonna do mine in 45 seconds.
Well,
I mean, it's town council.
you got it.
Billable hours.
I guess. He says he tries to be prudent with his money.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Emotional out of the brain.
Good people.
Chuck. Yeah, I talked to him earlier. He's coming.
Hey, dog. How are you, buddy?
I talked to him mid-afternoon. Hey, Rob.
But it's one minute.
Guaranteed. Nope.
We did exactly what they said.
Franksville gave us a list, and then
They make you put
he sent a notice.
That's what you gotta say.
Huh?
That's what you gotta say.
Yeah, they,
People trying to build up opposition.
When we, that was, okay, like, I was like, looks awfully
Very similar.
Yeah, I was like, but they all start looking the same, and they're like, oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Unless they don't want to.
Chuck.
Oh, Chuck, yeah.
He's still, he don't act like, I think he's got a lot. He's good at hiding that too.
Oh, Chuck's not here?
Mm-mm.
Kurt? I talked to him earlier. I know. He knows about it.
There he is.
How'd it happen?
Sorry for your waiting.
Gave me extra time. You two working together?
Oh, it's 3:30, it's been here a long time.
There we go. Get the light.
Cut a little close today.
Down there. If you hover over it in the.
I know, I mean.
All right, I have 7:01 and we now have our town attorney present. So I'm going to call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item, review and adopt the agenda for tonight, March 27th, 2025. And to the board, I have a motion that we amend the agenda, I guess add a 4A shortly after the public comment period, that we move into a closed session to consult with our town attorney. So the motion would be, I move that we go into closed session for the purpose of consulting with our attorney, preserving the attorney-client privilege pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A3.
I'll second the motion.
So you're adding that as an item 4A on the agenda?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We have a second.
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.
Do we need a motion to approve the agenda with that addition?
Okay.
Yes. I will do that. I move to approve the agenda with the additional item of 4A as previously discussed.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Review and adopt the agenda from February 27th, our regular town planning board meeting. Any questions or comments from the board?
I think you meant minutes.
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm sorry. I thought I did. Minutes.
Okay.
Any questions or comments?
I do have one change. Let's see, I think it's the second page there. Asked if it explained how the sewage is going to get over the proposed to the proposed septic area. Let's see, Mrs. Herdone said it would be collected and piped bored under to the common field. That should be bored, B-O-R-E-D, under the road to the common field.
Any other comments or questions?
Right there.
I'll make go ahead.
With that syntax change, I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item number 4, public comment period. If you are here today to speak about the 2 public hearing items, we'd ask that you wait until that session is opened and not comment during this period. But if there's any other public comments not pertaining to those 2 items, the floor is open for that.
To clarify, I've never, been to a town hall. Are you talking, is that the public hearing for the development that is on, the page 1 of the?
Yeah, the rezoning, item number 5?
Okay, is that now to speak for that?
Not
Or is
yet.
that being-
Not yet.
Not
Okay,
yet.
just sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, so there's a public comment period for anything, and then during the public hearing, you can talk about each item, or you can talk about it beforehand, but it's probably better to do it during the public hearing itself. Yeah, you're good.
All right. So we are to item 4A, and so we will,
So this be time to make the motion, then to go into
yes.
executive session, and that needs to be seconded and voted on.
Okay. I move that we go into closed session to consult with our attorney for purpose of consulting with our attorney and preserving attorney-client privilege pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A3.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
See, I bought a new toy the other day and just found out it works. You know those little things you use to jump on cars?
Oh, jump there.
Yeah, it's a jump pack, but it's lithium battery.
I got a little anxiety going on right now.
It's awesome.
I ain't seen one that good. Them are better than mine.
Jumping right to the end of the line.
Get 'em.
Went worked for developers.
We got a group that we've been
Considered it a long, long time ago.
going on to name the office for 50-some years. Anyway, we, for the last, this year was 43 years. We go to Hill.
I didn't either, it just kind of was like,
They bought the
this
other
one,
place. We've got
it's fortunate.
the nose place.
It's the city of Raleigh.
We,
And the developers just always found cases.
we've kind of adopted these two cats. Adopted up and they do the same cat. They usually have four cats. I reckon we've been working with these guys 20-some years now. So look for them. Come up with some occasions like that. You know, that's cool.
Yeah.
We got less power and our guns left over than we did when we probably done it 50, 40 years ago. Yeah. Good. Where's it?
I'm super challenged by it. I used to be.
Brother-in-law, if you would go, just take a left and go to Vegas, to the right, but then
Make it recommendation.
in Raleigh, that way. You go down probably a couple, 3
Stop
miles.
short of telling them I've already got.
Directly across the boat. They used to live. They used to live, when you go across the bridge, as soon as you get on the bridge, if you look over your left shoulder, it was the fifth house.
I haven't been there in a while.
Right over the same wall, and more. That's the beach place.
Yeah, that's a really nice area.
I mean, it's a service.
And that's almost walking distance to downtown.
Yeah, it is very close. Don't feel like you should drive, you can walk on.
Oh, yeah.
What if you folks would go for, for instance, before you go, bunch of people go, that house, there primarily, and then up in the,
Well, it's like everyone's.
like it would be, college.
It's a lot easier to get down there now because they've got that toll road.
This is it, like,
Between
you don't,
47 split.
I got one pass.
25 miles, but it takes, it definitely takes 25 minutes to
I'm
stretch.
like, oh, you did that.
But it probably takes 45 minutes off if you don't go around either, you don't have to go under the road. You're way low. It's right too.
Friday, you need to.
I'll serve it where it was.
Oh, 7. That is. Yeah. Yeah. Palmer,
I said, you know, you
yeah. Somebody's gonna do it, as long as. Yeah, somebody's gonna do it. It is very satisfying.
I remember when they did me like years ago, so, right. Let me see, try to get elected. Long, smooth, running road.
You'd think we were in New York City trying to build something. Between the buildings.
The next hand, what's it say like?
Whatever. Yeah, I'm not fancy to set my own back room.
That's where we used to go to DC,
Okay.
Four.
Yeah, that's come down there in Florida. Are y'all hearing about the project down in Trojan Creek?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Save some time and.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm happy to.
Yeah. These are the exact plans that would be there.
Okay.
You look through.
Yeah. Okay.
See.
Yeah, so kind of what we kind of had thought along.
Oh, okay. All right. Do you
Yeah.
have any questions I can answer?
Yeah.
My name's Kevin. I'm the developer.
Okay.
I actually own the property.
Okay, yes, yeah, we.
Yeah, you're probably the one person we actually need to talk to.
Yeah.
Because we own the property,
And then for the
Andrew
lawn?
Taylor cleared it.
That right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we just bought
We
there
just bought it in
Oh.
October.
in October.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we just, yeah, we only just, yeah, we closed at the end of September there on that property.
What concerns do you have? Just that the family was. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like I think,
Always.
yeah,
I mean, our big thing is like, we came out this way to get away from the city.
light pollution,
What's the light pollution?
street lights,
The
the neighborhood quietness, like all of that. I know.
Well, I will tell you in the local market, a lot of people, I grew up in the east part of town. I live in Oak Ridge, like,
Gotcha, yeah.
part of it. We were wanting a place where the elderly, like on my mother's could live.
Okay, yeah.
So, of course, maintenance free, without all of
He told me no, I couldn't sleep.
And all this is.
Not bad.
Okay, well, yes, and we actually do a lot, and it steel cages, and everything is good there. And there's a pipe inside that, so it's
I make a motion that we open the public portion of this back up.
I'll say,
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, public hearing items. Conditional rezoning, case 25-01, PLBD-00105, 8,070 NC Highway 68 North from CZPDM, conditional zoning, planned unit development mixed, to CZPDR, conditional zoning, planned unit development residential. The subject property is located at 8,070 NC Highway 68 North, Guilford County Tax Parcel 238998 in Oak Ridge Township, immediately southeast of the intersection of NC Highway 68 North with Blues Creek Road, and compromises approximately 37.1 acres. This is a request to conditionally rezone the subject property from CZPDM, conditional zoning planned unit development mixed. Reference case number 0801-STPL-00174, approved by the Stokesdale Town Council on April 7th, 2008. 2, CZPD-R Conditional Zoning Planned Unit Development Residential. The planning board will make a recommendation to the town council, which will have the final authority to approve or deny the request. The town of Stokesdale may propose additional conditions, but they must be consented to in writing by the owner.
All right, and I didn't catch if you said this. If you did, I apologize for being redundant, but the conditions associated with this conditional rezoning, the use condition is, there's only one, it's twin home dwelling with associated infrastructure. And the proposed development conditions are that the development will not exceed 44 homes, and it ties in with the included sketch plan. And I'll just go through a little bit of the staff report here. The existing land uses on the property, the parcel is currently undeveloped. It's surrounded predominantly by residential, agricultural, and undeveloped land. It fronts on NC Highway 68 North, as you mentioned. NC Highway 68 North is a major thoroughfare per the adopted 2024 Collector Street and Thoroughfare Plan. The annual average daily traffic provided by NCDOT for NC Highway 68 North is 4,100 trips. Let's see, there is, per Guilford County Schools, the proposed development at a maximum of 44 units would produce an estimated 4 to 6 additional students for Stokesdale Elementary, an estimated additional 3 to 5 students for Northwest Middle, and an estimated additional 4 to 6 students for Northwest High. In the Stokesdale Future Land Use Plan, this parcel is recommended to be residential. Within the residential area in the plan, there's a recommendation for preserving Stokesdale's rural setting by establishing a uniform residential density. To achieve this, the plan says the following standards are recommended. 1, minimum lot size of 40,000 square feet. 2, increase natural buffers along perimeter roads and entrances into major developments. 3, increase buffers and protection along creeks and waterways. 4, plan for interconnected residential development through street and trail links. And 5, eliminate the use of planned unit development residential outside the town core. Staff recommends approval of the project or of the rezoning request. The approval of the request is reasonable because the proposed rezoning would provide housing opportunities immediately adjacent to the Stokesdale town core. The subject property also has direct road frontage, as I mentioned, on NC Highway 68 North, which also, like I mentioned, is a major thoroughfare, which will provide sufficient access for the proposed development. Finally, the proposed conditions, 1, limit the number of dwelling units to a level of density comparable to single-family residential zoning districts as recommended in the future land use plan. And 2, restrict the range of permitted uses compared to the current CZPDM zoning district. The request is inconsistent with the Stokesdale Future Land Use Plan recommendation of residential. Thus, if approved, the future land use designation for the parcel would need to be amended to town core. That concludes my staff report.
Any questions from the board? I have a question, Robbie, for you. Any chance you can give us a definition of a twin home as outlined in the town's ordinances?
Be glad to. So, Section 2 of the Stokesdale Development Ordinance lays out the definitions. Let's see here, item Q is a twin home dwelling. That is a building consisting of 2 single-family dwelling units, each dwelling unit occupying its own conventional lot and conveyed by deed, connected along a common party wall with no interior circulation between the 2.
Thank you. Any comment, any other questions or comments from the board? I know when we reviewed the sketch plan, there were a lot of questions that got answered at that point. Yep. Okay. So we will open this up for comment from the public. If you are for or against, I think we'll take the ones that are for the project first.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Hodiern, 804 Green Valley Road, Suite 200 in Greensboro. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, which is KRC Development. The principals of that group are Mr. Kevin Combs and Mr. Kami Johnson, who are here. We also have with us Dalton Ward, the professional engineer who did the civil design work and would continue to do that should this progress to a site plan part of the sequence. So as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, we are back on the heels of the sketch plan review that you guys did for us back in February. You recommended favorably. The town council did end up also approving that. So that's how we're here tonight, pursuant to that exact sketch plan as you saw it in February. So thank you for the presentation, Mr. Tu, and I just had a couple of additional comments. If we could pull open my slides, please. And go to the first slide. Just a quick summary of the request. It's 37.5 acres, but we actually are doing a little bit of right-of-way dedication as required on Highway 68. So our new acreage after that is about 36.5 acres. I want to emphasize and lift up that this is a downzoning request. You heard it mentioned, but it's hard to maybe parse it all out with the alphabet soup and the designations. It is currently zoned conditional zoning, planned unit development mixed. So it's got conditions, it's got an approved sketch plan, it's got uses laid out. You know, the ordinances were a little different, but pretty much the same process we're going through now. And so it is very prescribed what can currently happen on that parcel. And what that means is that it's zoned today for office, retail, and residential. That's the mix. And it's certain allocations of that. So not only can you have office and retail, but you can have residential up to an amount that would not be able to exceed 1.5 units per acre. So not only is it more intense by type of use, it's got retail and office, but it's more intense in the amount of residential that can happen there today. Not only in density, but in type, because it's expressly allows for single-family homes, townhomes, and condos. And remember, our request is only single-family attached or twin home as defined as your clerk has read. So it's a downzoning. Our request is also planned unit development, but it's residential. We're taking away that mix. Our sketch plan that would be attached is you're very familiar with, and of course is just that twin home dwelling product home limited to 44 homes. Again, I think I talked about this in February, but it's important. 44 homes is a maximum. It's aspirational. Just because it's on the approved sketch plan doesn't mean we're required to reach it. So, you know we have to come back to site plan. You would see that, and if, once we do all the drainage calculations, the road profiles, everything, if we end up with 43 or 41, it is what it is. So 44 is a maximum, not a mandate. Let's see. Also wanted to mention, that we did do a traffic study, trip generation, turn lane warrant analysis. Hopefully you've all received that. I see your head nodding. So that was done to study the proposed site access point that we're showing on our sketch plan. Also, however, with the sequence of events, NCDOT would have to issue the driveway permit ultimately. So if they decide later that a turn lane is warranted, then we'll have to do that. So, but this does give you a good expectation and understanding of what the current data is telling us. All right. This does meet the land use plan designation of residential. I heard Mr. Tu mention that staff is calling this inconsistent. However, I would submit that it meets the residential requirement in that, of course, it's a residential land use, which is not what you currently have under your current zoning, and also the format is the density works out and the lot sizing, what the math works out to being consistent with somewhere between an RS30 and an RS40 zoning, which is right there in your residential categorization. So if we could go to the next slide, please. This is just the subject property, the red star. I think you all know this, but just in case anyone needs to get oriented, it is just north of what is deemed the town core, adjacent to the town core, as we've heard, right below the intersection of where Blues Creek Road comes in to Highway 68 there, on the east side of the road. The next slide, this is just your existing zoning quilt, if you will, the red star indicating the subject property. You see the yellow there is indicative of that PDM zoning that I described. Right across the street, you've got existing commercial zoning. South of there, you've got a lot of different colors that you see designated non-residential uses in your town core area, and then that ag zoning that you heard in the staff report to the east and the south. The next slide, please. This is our conceptual layout, which is one and the same as the sketch plan that you've already seen. So again, this is just showing how those twin home units would sit on the entire parcelage, and you get that exact commitment as part of this process. So it would have to comport with this sketch plan. We wouldn't be allowed to shuffle it up and lay it out in some new different way. Should this zoning get approved, it's attached to the sketch plan here. And we'll talk about this a little bit more. A few details. This does include the right-of-way dedication I mentioned. It does include the building height maximum of 35 feet. You'll recall that that was done intentionally to mimic the single-family building height limit, so that's the same height that anyone could build a single-family home to. We wanted to be consistent with that. It has been studied with the traffic impact analysis that you've seen, but still subject to NCDOT driveway permit approval. The density calculation works out to just 1.2 units per acre, which is somewhere between RS30 and RS40 mathematically. The built-upon area is 4.4 acres, or 12.26%, which is easily well under the 24% threshold, which demarcates low-density versus high-density development in terms of stormwater management requirements. So we are at that low-density development pattern. I think we've talked about everything else on here. If we could go to the next slide. This was asked last time, what would the homes look like? So this is, of course, not a required part of the zoning analysis, but we wanted to answer the question because we know people want to know. So these are offered just for informational purposes and illustratives. But we've got four different just example renderings here from the actual home builder who will build these homes. So this is not pie in the sky. So these are, thanks. If you could just kind of go through, this is just four examples. You'll notice that there's a lot of mixing of materials. There's masonry, there's board and batten, there's shingle, there's hardy plank. There's a lot of color options. So what you see here is not a finite set of elevations. It's just an example of four ways all the various options can go together. So, if you wanted to choose, maybe you like the gray color tone palette, but you want more masonry, or you like shingles instead of board and batten. All that is variable, so that you can have more options than I'm able to do the math of as I stand here right now. The builder also has requirements, and the developer as well, that would go in the declaration that that requires distinction between next door lots and across the street lots, so that if we've already decided that lot 13 is going to look like this, then lots 12, 14, and the ones across the street couldn't have that same combination of materials or color scheme, so that just enforces variability in the streetscape. No vinyl, thank you, Kevin. So so the materials that you see are the cementitious siding or the masonry. We talked, I just wanted to point out, we talked about parking, and you saw it on one of my slides. The parking requirements under your ordinance, you have certain ratios that have to be met for the building type, and we're meeting that on site for each home because there's 4 off-street spaces, 2 in the garage and 2 in the driveway for each home. So you can see how that looks there. It is a 20-foot setback from the edge of the sidewalk. So what that means is you've got 20 feet where a car can comfortably be without hanging over into the sidewalk and, prohibiting somebody from being able to walk safely. If we can go to the next slides after these. We did do a neighborhood communication attempt just to make sure people were aware. We use the same mailing list that the county uses, and we like to do that because if you're getting a letter from the county about something, we also want to make sure you've heard from us and you know how to reach me or Mr. Combs or our engineer for a question. And we also, in addition to introducing the project, introducing ourselves, providing our contact info, we also provided the date and time of tonight's public hearing as well. So we didn't have anyone reach out to us from that letter, but, you know, hopefully that helped get the word out, and I know some folks are here, so we did.
I did have a couple people reach out.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, well, if
One
you,
of them's here.
well, good, okay, so the letter did do some good. I believe that is the last of my slides, but I'm happy to answer any questions, or if we have any questions about the traffic study, I've got that here as well, and I know you have copies, and Dalton's here, Mr. Combs is here. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure that I understood you correctly. Did you say that you're meeting the parking ordinance by including the inside the garage as well as the driveway? Is that what I understood?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We also do have some guest parkings, you know, kind of scattered throughout, but that's not to meet the required ratios. That's just to be functionally,
Or
you know,
cookout or et cetera.
right.
Okay.
You mentioned a height limit of 35 feet,
Yes, sir.
but your developmental conditions only say not to exceed 44 homes.
So it's on the face of the site plan, or the sketch plan, excuse me. And so the sketch plan is in and of itself a condition of the zoning. So it is incorporated by reference. If you would like it to be in both places, we're happy to do that.
It should be there.
It's number 4.
Right there.
All right.
All right, well, we're here as needed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else in favor? Anybody opposed that wants to speak?
Can I just ask a question? It's not opposed or for. It's
Can-
more.
Can you come up to the, and if you could state your name and address.
Hi there, my name is Jordan Coleman. I go by Taylor. I live at 8104 NC Highway 68 North. So this will basically be my backyard, or my new backyard. Our biggest concern is actually for the quality of the creek and maintaining that. That's one of our big concerns. Yes, we understand this is gonna go in. There's gonna be, you know, these homes in our backyard. There's gonna be new light pollution in the area. It is taking away from the ambiance that is there, one of the reasons we bought the property. But our biggest concern is we are going underneath these creeks. I understand that they're gonna be inside of a steel casing. Basically, it's a double insulation that's gonna go on. But what do we have in place should something go wrong? What is gonna be in place if one of the septic tanks or one of the leach fields that are set up don't work? Or something, what about clean out services? What about a pollution policy in place? None of this really attaches to that. This is all about the building portion. But those are my concerns because that is gonna affect the ecosystem that we all get to enjoy. One of the reasons that there's all of these restrictions already in place and having it be low density is for that, but none of the documents here are gonna tell us what those safety precautions are. So we were kind of curious as to what has even been considered. And that might not be where it's at tonight, and that's okay. But we wanna make sure those things are being considered. Because just because it hasn't happened in 100 builds before, doesn't mean that this isn't the one build where something could go wrong. And in my profession is, we plan for something to go wrong. That's why things exist. We also want to know, as folks who are going to be so close to it, can we have a copy of the HOA bylaws that are going to be put in place? Because if this is a townhome community, an HOA is present. I just want to make sure that at no point in time that there's any kind of issues or misconstrued, or, who do I need to talk to at the end of the day when it comes down to that, because my property is right there. And then finally, are there gonna be any kind of divides between those of us who border it and this new neighborhood that's going in place? Is there gonna be fencing? Is there gonna be hedgerows? What is that gonna look like? Or is there gonna be nothing at all? That's what I got.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. You will.
Thank you, Taylor, for your questions, and thank you for the opportunity to answer. So talking about the quality of the creek first and the processes that are in place there. So a couple things, and I'll let Dalton flesh it out if he wants to add to, but there's two, I guess, what I would call institutional control measures that this is all happening pursuant to. One is the county health department. So this is a septic permitting process, just like any other. And all this has to go through the county health department for not only upfront review and approval of the preliminary plans, but then to be permitted and then to be, an overseeing accountable agency. So something goes wrong, the county health department has that obligation, duty, and the buck stops here. That's who ultimately can hold anyone accountable if something's not happening. Secondary to that, but I think great for anyone who wants to make sure there's something in place, is because this is an HOA community and because of the declaration that governs this the way that it does, that there are requirements that, of course, lot owners maintain, fix, repair, handle anything that is malfunctioning, as anyone should do. But if they don't, the HOA has to step in and do it. And then they have reimbursements and lien right abilities against the actual lot owner to pay them back. But the HOA is a secondary measure of control there, a responsible party. And then, the county can, if there were an issue, that's a singular, more institutionalized organization that is capitalized and has money that the county can go after and say, fix this.
I think you need to let Dalton explain, because there's way more rules and regulations.
I will. And then I also wanted to say about that, I think we talked about this a little bit at planning board, or it could have been at council, but by boring under the creek, where that starts and ends is far outside of what would be impacted if you were going to do an aerial crossing or some other, if you were going to do some sort of impact in the wetlands that had to happen. So the boring under is really the most sensitive way to get across an environmental feature, because it doesn't attempt to go through it or over it. So and then I think you mentioned the double encasements and that sort of thing. So there are a lot of regulatory measures, there's a lot of oversight, there's a lot of parties that, are required and set up to be responsible for this sort of thing. And before I call Dalton up to talk about the rest of that, I'll mention the other two things. The HOA, the declaration will get recorded, so it's in the Register of Deeds, but I'd be happy to also supply you with a copy, as would the county. The way that works is that when you submit a plat, you're also required to submit your declaration draft to the county so they can review it all, and it gets recorded at the same time. Yeah, so that'll absolutely be available to you, and to your point, that'll be a singular point of contact if you have any issue or concern or something's not right, or somebody's breaking a rule or something. And the HOA, of course, has enforcement abilities through that declaration. The planting yards, we're required to meet what's under the ordinance, so whatever the ordinance requires in terms of our type of proposed land use against the agricultural or single-family land uses, we'll have to meet that. But I would also point out, Robbie, if you wouldn't mind going back to our sketch plan, or so you see the little houses, the boxes, everything else is common area. So this is, this type of community really gives you the most breadth between our perimeters and any adjacent uses, because imagine if this were just 44 homes all platted individually out, every lot would go back to the property line. Somebody could put their playground or their sandbox or their tool shed right up against the property line, and be a lot closer to our perimeters. Here, the HOA owns everything that's not underneath a home. So that means that all of that common area, all of that property is essentially a buffer, because you're not allowed to do anything in it, except for us to make it look pretty. So, you know, it's really a really nice control for making sure that the separation and what's open space truly is open space. But yes, there will be perimeter planting yards as prescribed under the ordinance. And Dalton, I'll let you talk about regulations.
Good evening. Dalton Ward, 902 Cross Creek Road in Kernersville. Just a couple of clarifications. For the type of septic system that we're doing, it's actually what we call an engineer option permit. So I do want to clarify, environmental health department won't be directly involved. They will have records and will be responsible to make sure that everything's complying with that permit, but it is a newer type of permit where you have a professional engineer, a soil scientist, and a septic system installer who are liable and culpable for the systems. And then given the size of the systems, they will have to have a wastewater operator that has regular visits to the site. And when they do, one of the employees at my company operates these systems. They'll have one person stand at the pump and one person stand at the field, and they make sure that they're getting the flow that they need. So you may be wondering, how do we know if there's a leak under the creek? Well, if they're not getting the flow that they expect at the field, they'll know that. They'll be able to pull that out and figure out, say, hey, you need to pull this line out, and they'll fix the issues.
And that process happens perpetual forever.
That's right. They will always have a wastewater operator. And then, as Amanda said, the planting yard will be installed per the ordinance. And then, if I'm not mistaken, Stokesdale has a lighting ordinance. A lighting plan will be required as part of the site design to make sure that light pollution meets what's prescribed in Stokesdale's ordinance. Was there anything else? I think that was it.
But we can answer any question y'all may have or anyone else may have. So.
Any other questions for me?
Anybody else? I'm good.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? Any more questions from? Good. Do we have a motion?
Well, Mr. Chairman, you may want to declare the public hearing closed.
Okay.
If that's all the public input there'll be.
All right, I will declare the public hearing closed. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend to town council approval of this zoning because it meets the development ordinance, and I think it will enhance the quality of life in Stokesdale.
Well, and you need to make findings about the reasonableness and consistency.
All right. Let me get my thoughts enough. Let me strike that. I think it'll be good for Stokesdale that it also, again.
Is it reasonable given
It's
nearby uses?
It's reasonable in this area with these uses. That's sufficient.
That's right, and then there's also a consistency requirement. And one of the issues, I guess, that was raised is on consistency. It may be, the staff has reported that it's inconsistent with the Stokesdale's plan, but it appears that it's more consistent than the currently allowed uses are.
Sure.
So you could say that it increases the consistency with our current plan.
All right, I'll amend to increases the consistency to Stokesdale's land use plan as the final statement.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Curtis?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
T?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And I am aye as well.
Thank y'all so much.
All right. glasses on. Item number 6, conditional rezoning, case number 25-02, PLB D-00107, 8299 and 8297, ZZ Walter Combs Way, from agricultural to CZHI conditional zoning heavy industrial. The subject properties located at 8299 and 8297 ZZ Walter Combs Way, Guilford County tax parcels 220554 and 233804 in the Bruce Township, immediately south of the intersection of Walter Combs Way and US Highway 158, and comprise approximately 10.03 acres in total. Approximately .081 acres of parcel 220554 are located outside the corporate limits of Stokesdale and are not subject to this rezoning request. This is a request to conditionally rezone the subject property from AG agricultural to CZ-HI conditional zoning heavy industrial. The planning board will make a recommendation to the Stokesdale Town Council, which has the final authority to approve or deny the request. The town of Stokesdale may propose additional conditions, but they must be consented to in writing by the owner.
Alrighty, so just like with the last case, I will go over the proposed conditions associated with this conditional rezoning. It is going to be a mouthful. So the use conditions that are proposed under the category of agricultural uses, there is one, which is horticultural specialties. Under the category of accessory uses and structures, we have accessory uses and structures customary, caretaker dwelling, emergency shelter, recycling collection point, satellite dish/communication tower. Under educational and institutional uses, we have ambulance service, fire station, government office, police station, neighborhood, post office. Under business, professional, and personal services, we have engineering, architect, or survey service, equipment rental and leasing with outside storage, equipment repair, heavy, equipment repair, light, landscape and horticultural services, truck and utility trailer rental and leasing, light, truck tractor and semi-rental and leasing, heavy, and truck washing. Under the category of retail trade, we have building supply sales with storage yard. Under the category wholesale trade, we have agricultural products, other, farm supplies, other, flowers, nursery stock, and florist supplies, forest products, hardware, lumber, and other construction materials. Under the transportation, warehousing, and utilities category, we have recycling processing centers, refuse and raw material hauling, utility company office, utility equipment and storage yards, utility lines and related appurtenances, utility services facility, no outside storage, utility substation, and warehouse general storage enclosed. Under the manufacturing and industrial uses category, we have concrete, cut stone, and clay products, contractors with no outside storage, contractors general building, contractors heavy construction, contractors special trade, wood containers, and wood products miscellaneous. Finally, under the category other uses, we have temporary construction, storage, or office, real estate sales, or rental office with concurrent building permit for permanent building. And finally, Christmas tree sales. There are also no development conditions offered.
Got a question. What was WCA again?
That is the watershed critical area. The existing land use on the property, it is vacant. It's surrounded by predominantly undeveloped land. There's a self-storage facility to the west. The east has some residential. There's also to the north some utility and wholesale uses. Let's see, so Walter Combs Way is classified as a local street, and US Highway 158 is classified as a major thoroughfare, both per NCDOT. The annual average daily traffic is not provided for Walter Combs Way, but for US Highway 158, it's 7,500 trips. Let's see. So for the Stokesdale future land use plan, the recommendation is professional/manufacturing corridor, and I'll read a short description of how that's summarized in the plan. It says the professional/manufacturing corridor is planned to provide an area for the growth of office space and light manufacturing services that is consistent with current uses. The corridor would start at the eastern edge of the town core on US Highway 158 and follow US Highway 158 east and terminate at the intersection of US Highway 158 and US 220. Currently, this portion of US Highway 158 contains industrial, highway business, office, residential, and agricultural areas. No new industrial areas are proposed due to the number of areas currently zoned but undeveloped. Staff recommends approval of the request. Approval of the requested rezoning is reasonable because there are several other industrially and commercially zoned properties in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. The proposed conditional zoning also would permit many commercial and industrial uses which have the potential to benefit the community through creation of jobs and provision of goods and services. The request is consistent with the Stokesdale future land use plan recommendation of professional/manufacturing corridor, so if approved, a future land use plan amendment would not be required.
Any questions from the board?
I have one. I note under water and sewer services, Mr. Two, that actually with the majority of other properties in our town, private septic systems is required. The Stokesdale water, however, does not extend all the way out there.
Understood.
I think it ends maybe a mile or so prior to this location.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification.
Any other questions? Okay. I will open it up for comments initially for the rezoning.
Good evening, Bill Greco with Land Solutions. My address is P.O. Box 347, Oak Ridge, North Carolina. Thank you, folks, for getting us on the schedule tonight. We'd like to thank staff for their assistance in getting the application through and for the staff report. Just a little bit to add on top of the staff report. Obviously, we agree with the report. We agree with the analysis that this is somewhat of a mixed-use area currently. It is in alignment with our land use plan, comp plan, so forth, so on. As to our uses, you know, our owner doesn't have a specific use right now, but with these rezonings and with these categories, what we've done is we've looked through each one individually, looked at the SIC codes on those. We've removed things that we feel like were impossible for a number of reasons, either, you know, not enough property, not the right fit, whatever. We've removed uses that we don't think were practical that would ever be there, and we've tried to keep enough here, enough of a list to strike a balance. The owner will have some options here in order to start the process of trying to develop this site. And the town has a smaller list. There's several hundred uses in the ordinance, so that's what we've attempted to do with this list. So certainly, if there's any questions or any specific use you'd like to talk about further, I'm here to do that. Other than that, we have contacted just a few of our neighbors. There's not many out there. No objections have been raised to our office or to the owner that we're aware of. So we'd appreciate your support tonight. And again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to do my best.
I have a question, well, not really a question, it's a statement. I'm not sure that the things under transportation, warehousing, and utilities, the refuse and raw material handling, that one would make me a little nervous here in the town, and I would like this a little bit better if that one was not included in this.
I'd be happy to strike refuse, as that's certainly not anything we're considering. Raw material handling could be something like gravel or sand or mulch, playground mulch. That's a raw material.
Okay.
But I'm certainly comfortable with striking the word refuse and,
Okay,
no problem at all.
okay. And the other one is where it mentioned truck washes in there, and with this being on a private, I mean, it would be a septic system, it makes me nervous again about how you would treat that water or process that volume of water. And that, I would like this a little bit better if that one was not in there as well.
Assuming I'm correct in what I'm about to say, I don't think that the use truck washing as a primary would be considered on this site ever. That's something you see at Buc-ee's or somewhere out on the interstate. That's not gonna happen here. There may be a truck there on property at some point that they wash, but it certainly won't be a primary business driver or use. So striking truck washing is perfectly agreeable.
Now, I've got a question about the WCA. How does watershed critical affect these uses?
So, I'll need to reference the table here, but there are basically a number of uses that are, even if they're permitted under the base zoning district, they would then be, there are certain uses that are not permitted, even if they're permitted under the base district, if it's also in a watershed critical area.
Is this a watershed critical area?
No, it is not.
Okay.
Any other questions at this time for Mr. Greco?
Thank you, folks.
Any other speakers for or against this proposed rezoning?
Well, actually, I have another question, I'm not sure. In parcel I, is that a residence? Because it's owned by Joshua and Kelly B. Marshall. You can't tell from the photo whether it's anybody there. As well as J. Looks like there's a resident there too.
Yeah, I believe they're single-family residences, but I'm not 100% certain. Yeah. I believe it is just this one. Yeah.
It is or it is not, or,
I need to visit the property and make 100% sure, but
Okay.
just looking at the included aerial map
mm-hmm,
and cross-referencing, it appears to be a single-family residence.
okay.
Mr. Mr. Greco,
Yes, sir.
have you contacted these people with single-family residences there? I'm just looking at Alexander Gallimore and the Marshalls.
I don't have the county list with me in my hands. They were contacted, were they not? Yeah. No, I haven't had any communication with them through our office now.
I hate to put a heavy industrial site next to somebody's house.
I think there's a gap between us. I don't think we adjoin. I mean, as to that concern, there's, but standard buffer requirements and everything else will apply to the property. There's also a scenic corridor overlay that'll increase the landscape buffers and some other things. Similar to what you see in some of the more recent development up there, let's call it. Things that have been done in the past, call it 12 years. You can see a distinct difference between a commercial site that was developed within my career span versus things that have been there forever. So there are additional considerations in place for the site once it gets to the site plan level.
Any more questions from the board? Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor or against this proposed rezoning? Okay, I'm going to close the public portion of this hearing and ask the board if we have a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, so I heard Mr. Greco say that he was agreeing to additional conditions that would, if I understood it, that would not allow refuse handling on the site and not allow truck washing on the site. Is that? Correct. Did I get that right? So, before this gets to the point of final approval, I guess I'm reminded you are only making a recommendation to the town council. So if you were to propose to the, or recommend to the town council that they approve that, so long as before they have a hearing, before town council, that there's a written confirmation that that's going to be withdrawn, or those uses will not be allowed.
So, but if I understand you correctly, between now and the town council, we would reference that our recommendation is pending this.
Correct.
Or what, if we choose to recommend. And then Mr. Greco, before the town council meeting, would need to confirm that in writing to the town.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's right. Okay. Those are the only two uses that I've heard any questions about. Okay.
I will make a motion to recommend this pending those additional two items, the truck washing and the refuse being struck.
Okay. All right, then, so you need the consistency and reasonableness requirements. Not my rule, I'm sorry.
All right. It's reasonable because there's several other industrial, commercial zone properties in the general area, and it is consistent with the professional manufacturer corridor of Stokesdale.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a second. Curtis?
Aye.
Steve?
Nay.
Steve?
Aye.
Andrew?
Nay.
And I'm an aye.
Okay.
Thank you, folks.
All right, new business items. Number 7, preliminary plat review, case number 29-07 SUB 00320, 7834 Eversfield Road. The subject property is located at 7834 Eversfield Road, Guilford County Tax Parcel number 150401 in the Bruce Township, approximately 6,800 feet north of the intersection of Eversfield Road and Oak Ridge Road, and compromises approximately 45.79 acres. The subject property is zoned RS40 residential. This is a request for approval of the preliminary plat proposing a 23-lot subdivision. I think everybody has a copy of this.
I'll just add that the plat appeared before the Guilford County Technical Review Committee on August 6, 2024. It's also been reviewed individually by Guilford County staff. All the staff comments received on the plat thus far are attached in your packet. And in summary, staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat.
So, Mr. Chairman, at this point, this is a little bit different from the previous cases. Those were those previous two cases were kind of legislative issues where you were making a decision, was it good use or bad use? This is a little bit different. This is where you're determining, does this plat comply with the development ordinance? And if you find it does, then you shall approve. And if it doesn't, then you don't approve. So it's a little bit less discretion on your part than you had in the
It's
previous.
very
two.
narrow is what you're saying.
That's right.
Any questions or comments?
You know, where's the city water system in relation to this? At the town of Stokesdale limits.
I don't know that.
This one's gonna be on wells, not gonna be on the town. It actually ends at northwest. Yep. Yeah, it ends at Northwest Meadows, so it's greater than 1,000 feet, so it's not required to be.
Yeah.
And it is stipulated on item number, as I get my magnifying glass. Again, item number 6 on the plat says, this property is,
Served by individual
I'm
wells.
sorry, yes, it will be, number 5, it's gonna be served by wells
Individual.
and septic systems. And with this, I can't read.
It's number 5 on the right.
Number 5 under the,
Yes. Individual wells and septic. Okay. Thank you for that, T.
certainly.
Any other questions?
Well, I guess with the wetlands, their wells won't run dry.
And again, another difference between this and the previous matters, you're not, your action here is final with regard to this unless there's an appeal. So any party can appeal. If there is no appeal filed, then it would become final action. If there is an appeal filed, then it would go to the town council.
more questions, Steve?
Either. I think it's been through numerous submissions, resubmissions, and corrections.
Any questions from anyone? Do we have a motion to approve the final plat?
It said preliminary plat. You just said final.
Preliminary plat.
Site plan. I would consider that a site plan.
You're right, it's preliminary.
Name is spoken then about what it is.
I'll make a motion that we, as town planning board, approve this preliminary plat.
I will second that. Curtis?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. All right. We have a public comment period if anyone would like to speak. Nobody looks like no takers, so we'll move on. Announcements, Town Planning Board announcements. The regular town council meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April the 10th, 2025 at 7 p.m. inside the Stokesdale Town Hall Council Chambers. The next regular Stokesdale Town Planning Board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April the 24th, 2025 at 7 p.m. inside the Stokesdale Town Hall Council Chambers. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I so move.
I second. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I need to, let me speak about this. I may have confused.
You did well. 8:17.